Welcome to the rugged forests of Eastern Europe, where we join the Photo Safari Club on an extraordinary expedition through the Balkan Mountains to the Danube Plain of Bulgaria. The proud Balkan Mountains. Close by is the sparkling Danube River. The sun shines over Thrace and blazes over Pirin. Dear motherland, you are heaven on earth. These are the words used by an ancient people to describe their country, a wildlife heaven. A country of endless flourishing plains, crossed by thick green forests, magnificently beautiful mountains, crystal clear lakes and rivers. Hundreds of bird and animal species have found their home and shelter here. A wild island right in the heart of Europe, where the ancient roads that connect Eurasia and Africa intersect. A starting point, not only for the people that have conquered this continent, but also to many bird and animal species that migrate north and south, guided by millennial-old instincts for rut and nesting locations. An arena for fierce fights between gladiators. A place where civilization has held back from destroying nature. Spring in Bulgaria is magnificent and full of life. Its wild inhabitants have survived the cold winter months and are keen to create offspring. That cute mammal, just like the bear, has spent the winter in deep hibernation. This hedgehog has just woken up and proceeds in performing two urgent tasks. The first is to eat. While doing that in the open air, it enjoys significant protection. Its spine-covered back can inflict painful wounds on any would-be attackers. The hedgehog is frightened by the speeding rabbit. Both of them are unaware of the imminent danger they face. They're being followed by two sharp eyes. Both the rabbit and the hedgehog could make an equally good breakfast to the fox that has approached them unnoticed. This predator went out hunting, but is careful not to turn itself into prey. In the end, they're all lucky. The fox, even if hungry, saved its skin from the eagle's sharp claws. The rabbit and the hedgehog are too, because the fox didn't eat them. Even the eagle is lucky because destiny sends a female which has started building their nest and is ready for mating. This is their chance to produce offspring. The blissfully ignorant hedgehog continues its urgent tasks. As a lizard ran off some time ago, it proceeds to its second urgent task, building a nest for the expected babies. It needs to collect enough straw to weave into a large basket, in which to bear the small hedgehogs or hoglets. This spiky mammal is even more easily frightened than the rabbit, and every movement around its well-hidden nest makes it tremble. The tree pipit is among the most curious birds in the forest, and the hedgehog has attracted its curiosity. Homes for the little ones are not only being built by the birds and the hedgehogs. Lynxes also prepare dens for their kittens. They build them in the roots of a fallen tree. The bottom of their den is covered by an insulating layer of feathers from birds eaten as prey, as well as by a layer of their own winter fur removed by licking each other. This family is also looking for a suitable place to rear the new generation. The female chukar partridge is also in a rush to find a convenient nesting place. Meanwhile, the male is taking a mud bath. Only the noise from an approaching animal could make it stop bathing now. The chukar partridge is quite picky when it comes to the location of its nest. It should be among thick shrubs, well hidden, and if possible next to large mammals. The perfect place is in the forest, near the farmyard. Even so, this couple gets an even better opportunity. The chukar partridge lives for around 20 years, and once it settles somewhere, it doesn't change its habitat. This couple of chukar partridges inhabit the favorite place of a group of bison. Near the meadow where the large animals spend the night, the birds have a safe location for their nest. The birds sneaking around the thick shrubs are not left unnoticed by the bison. The youngest member of the group is the most impressed. The small bison has not yet turned 1 year old. Every new thing startles it and makes it look on with fear and curiosity. The adult bison is aware of their colorful neighbor's existence and quickly loses interest in them. The small bison can see its parents are unimpressed by these strange creatures and gets the courage to approach. The chukar partridge does not like that kind of intimacy, and it tries to frighten away the small bison. In fact, cohabitation with bison helps keep the smaller predators away. Once left alone, the bird starts picking away at some fresh dandelions. The animals in the group are calm, so the birds decide it's high time to renew their nest. Every day, they enjoy the protection of the largest mammal in the wildlife of Bulgaria. The small bison studies everything around with great curiosity. It will discover a whole new world full of colors and smells, plants and other animals. Even though it will be under the protection of its mother and the herd for the next few years, the young animal will have to learn to protect itself. It will learn to distinguish edible from poisonous plants and not to get too close to dangerous insects and reptiles that could cause serious harm. Spring is when most insects start procreating. However, in nature, the phrase "make love not war" is rarely used. At times, when some are going mad with their love calls, they can become easy prey to others. This is not only for insects, where the mating period for some is the hunting season for others. Even tortoises, with their tough protection that is impenetrable to most predators, often fall victim to smart birds, who drop the tortoises from great heights onto sharp, hard rocks in order to break their shells. As the weather gets warmer, deer look to get rid of the antlers that have fulfilled their role. During autumn in the mating season, they use them to fight for the right to create offspring. They also successfully use them during the winter in order to protect them against predators. Now it's time to remove the antlers so the new ones can grow. The most interesting circle of life in nature comes after the end of the mating season and the birth of the new generation, when the time is best suited for offspring to arrive. Every species has its own strategy to protect their young. That raven has chosen a hard-to-reach location for its nest so that the chicks can grow up and then learn to fly, before starting to take care of themselves and their food. The small hedgehogs will spend more time in the nest so that the breast milk they feed on will help make them strong and harden their spines. While they are still helpless, they could fall victim to small predators, so they won't leave their shelter until their mother has fully prepared them for the outside world. They'll leave the nest when they're ready to face the dangers of the forest. The baby hedgehogs or hoglets are usually born in 4s or 5s, and when they first appear, they are pink and hairless. During these first couple of weeks, the mother protects and cares for them. The spines on their backs form during the 3rd week after birth, and in another 10 days' time, the small babies will leave the nest. They'll gather fruit and plants during the night and will hunt invertebrate reptiles, so they can in turn survive and procreate later on. The newly born hoglets don't always have a hidden nest or large appearance to protect them. They don't even have regular spines. Most of these babies are helpless during the first couple of weeks of life. Their only protection is their masking color and secretive behavior. In nature, they're easily frightened, which makes them run from the slightest danger. This is what eagles rely on so that they can feed their rapidly growing chicks. The nest of the white-tailed eagle is one of 5 in the area. They're usually constructed at the top of very high trees or underneath a rocky cornice. The eagle lives with a constant partner and has strong ties to its territory which it protects from other eagles. It helps with the hatching of usually 2 eggs. There are 3 young eagles in the nest, which is very rare. Even if there are 3 eggs and all the chicks have hatched, usually 2 or even 1 will make it. The weaker chicks will be pushed out of the nest by the strongest. The presence of the 3 young eaglets is an example of nature taking care of its wild inhabitants. However, survival for the 3 chicks depends on the amount of food brought by their parents. Obviously, the region surrounding the lake is full of life. There is more than enough food to feed the eaglets. The white-tailed eagle hunts on the water as well as on land. The wingspan of the large bird exceeds 2 meters, and it is capable of catching a fish or lifting a young animal into the air weighing up to 8 kilograms. This lord of the air's favorite catch is large birds like geese, swans, cranes, and ducks. In order to get rid of the competitors in its hunting territory, this aerial predator attacks and hunts down the birds that dive under the water. Despite its ruling nature, the white-tailed eagle will continue to protect its chicks from other competitors in order to keep the title of supreme aerial predator. This is a title the golden eagle and the vulture would also like to have. These 2 birds are larger, and they would not hesitate in attacking the chicks of the white-tailed eagle if the nest is left unprotected. Fortunately, the pair of white-tailed eagles keep their eyes on their home and protect it from the attacks of other predator birds. Any potential attacker will be unwise to think that they are capable of fighting 2 fierce eagles protecting their chicks. In several weeks' time, these young eagles will be strong enough to start flying and to try hunting themselves. Until then, they will rely on Lady Luck backing their parents. The white-tailed eagles are extinct in Western Europe, but here in Bulgaria, they feel at home, and there is not a single water bird that feels safe when hearing their piercing whistle, the signal that says they're out hunting. Even the pelican prefers to cover up. Only cormorants keep confidently and fearlessly plundering the food stores, relying on their advantage in numbers. These exceptional divers can catch a fish several meters beneath the surface of the water. Their insatiable and numerous flocks bring about death and destruction to fish stocks in every water basin they inhabit. Their statute of protected species turns them into untouchable invaders, untouchable by everyone except Bulgarian wildlife. It's a wonderful morning at the start of summer. Bulgaria's wild inhabitants are awoken by the first rays of sun, and the first thing they can think of is breakfast. For the newborn hedgehogs, the beetles that pass by the nest are like fresh, crispy cookies. Just the smell of that tasty beetle can make the spikes on their backs tremble with pleasure. The deer in the forest aren't quick to find breakfast. They are sick from mating fever and rarely eat. Their powerful roar gives away their location and disturbs the otherwise peaceful autumn atmosphere. The wolves can track the stags without having to leave their den. The animals are quick to take advantage of the cool morning hours to enjoy a bite of their favorite delicacy. For some, these are pears and apples, and to others, it's bugs or carrion. The wolves have made themselves comfortable nearby the wild pears, and they're expecting to ambush their next meal. But it's an unusual day today. A day where nothing happens the way the wildlife would like it to. This deer is smart, and it has approached the orchards from the leeward side of the hill. The pack's smell gives it away, and the deer manages to avoid the ambush. The forest resounds with the noise of the wolves' hunger and disappointment. However, even the blood-curdling howls of the wolves can't silence the fervent love calls of the deer. The battles for power amongst the big stags rarely result in a fatal outcome, unlike the battles in the lower lands. Here, the fights between the crickets are lethal. A male is about to defeat its opponent from the other side of the meadow. The winner will have the privilege of eating the loser. Of course, only if it doesn't turn into a hedgehog's breakfast first. The hunting procession is halted by the unexpected appearance of a predator. This small hedgehog doesn't stand a chance against an adult beech marten, but today is its lucky day. Like itself, the hunter is young, inexperienced, and easily frightened. Obviously, today, no one is having breakfast. The scared youths drift away in different directions. Still hungry, the small hedgehog wastes no time in getting back to its nest, in order to find consolation in the prickly caress of its brothers and sisters. High up in the mountains, the animals there are also looking for something to eat before the sun heats up the rocks. No matter how bright, green and attractive everything seems, few areas are easily accessed and safe. The freshest and youngest leaves are well protected against chamois by their long and sharp spikes. What's more, the best breakfast is found in the most inaccessible and dangerous rocky terraces, where eagles can easily surprise the ruminant animals which inhabit the high mountain areas. The small predators can try to hunt here beneath the rocky peaks, but the fox has learned that after the eagle has struck, there will be surely something left for it to eat. Caves are the favorite shelter from rain, snow, or sun to all those who inhabit these high mountain regions. Traces left by chamois, hinds, wild boars, and even deer, wolves, and bears crisscross amongst these rocky outcrops. They are one of the favorite hunting locations of the big predators. However, the carnivores' best stalking places are the rivers. In the hot summer months, animals are forced to come there every day to get the water they need. The wild boar is not as accomplished a climber as the chamois, so it frequently checks the leftovers from the eagles' and vultures' dinner. Boars are famous for their love of animal proteins. Once they have tried the meat of a dead animal, they prefer this highly calorific food to anything else. One of the rare victims from the battling stags has died here, and the boar still remembers the taste of the deer. But today, it will have to make do with an abundant breakfast, albeit vegetarian. The mouflons had a good meal, and now it's time to digest what they've eaten. They lie down and ruminate their breakfast. The curved horn mouflons, like other ruminant animals, chew again the already partially digested and fermented food in their stomachs in order to extract additional nutrients from it. The large boar is also ready for a nap after its abundant vegetarian breakfast with acorns. However, everyone's peaceful relaxation is interrupted by the appearance of a large pack of females with their babies. The mothers know that this part of the forest is the personal territory of a male that is as big as a bear. The females know that this giant loves eating meat, and they're scared. It seems to be in high spirits and won't chase the intruders away from its favorite acorn forest. A young female observes the 300-kilogram giant with a mixture of respect and distrust. The fox knows that where the giant is, there is almost always some leftover scrap of meat, and frequently checks where the boar has eaten for residues of food. After a refreshing nap, it's time for some personal hygiene. Scratching and scraping the thick bristles help to shed some parasites. The red deer is the ruler of the forest. It's decided to check for some acorns. The great deer is startled by the boar that has crossed his path. Ashamed by his cowardly escape, it's quick to withdraw to the other end of the forest. The boar, happy with the forest king's escape, starts sharpening its tusks demonstratively. Its disdain and dominance humiliate the red deer even more. This regal animal will quickly forget about this humiliating situation and so makes a dignified withdrawal. And the boar decides to show the pack what it feels like to be the real ruler of the forest. A young male takes the challenge and starts sharpening its tusks. Neither it nor the other boar in the pack have the strength to oppose the giant. The small newly born piglets are a tasty bite for every adult fox. But the young one following the pack is not big enough yet to cope on its own. The fox will have to try its luck elsewhere. The pack is scattered by the frantic pace of the leader. The fox follows the giant to see if it'll be lucky this time. The boar heads off towards the promised land. The arable farmland is located at the end of the forest, a place that attracts wildlife, full of orchards and cornfields. The ripe, tasty pears and apples are a temptation the deer cannot resist. A hungry fallow deer is trying to shred the branches with its antlers. The fox is worried and cannot believe its eyes. In the human's garden, so much noise won't go unnoticed. Anytime soon, the fox expects the two-legged guards to appear from somewhere. A hind joins the secret feast. The fox tries to find something edible, It can't understand what the deer could find so tasty under the branches in the orchard. Maybe there is something hidden beneath the dry leaves and grasses. These jumpy wild animals rarely visit areas of human habitation and start rapidly drifting away from them. Even the sweet, ripe pears that have fallen onto the ground don't delay the hind for long. Nevertheless, the fox has decided to find out what the deer like to eat here. Obviously, this is the delicacy it's looking for. The tasty part is probably hidden underneath the wrap. The fox carries on stubbornly trying to find something edible hidden inside the fruit, without any success. It's about time to stop digging in the garbage and take up something more serious. It's time for hunting. Someone has already passed along the game pathway and has marked its territory with urine. The fox does the same and continues on. Its hunger is unbearable. The sunflower fields are at the end of the forest, with the wheat fields next to them. This is heaven to mice and fans of mouse fast food. All the lovers of the fragile field mice come here. It seems our friend is late. There is a competitor in the field that it cannot chase away. The mouse-hunting fox is twice as big as the youngster. The competition increases with every passing minute. The hawk joins in the mouse hunt. The bird of prey will also try its luck here. There is nothing else our foxy friend can do but to observe and hope its gurgling stomach won't scare the mice away when it's its turn. The hawk has already caught its dinner, and with a happy cry, flies off to its nest. There are thousands of mice in the field, and their continuous movement in the dry grass confuses the fox as it hunts. The predator sets its eyes on a potential victim. It's lucky enough to have spotted the entrance of this mouse's den. A surprise ambush would provide the best outcome here. However, its competitor's winning luck at the hunt causes the losing fox to salivate and feel the sharp pain of hunger even more acutely in its gurgling stomach. However, when the fox shaking with hunger, decides that pears are preferable to the terrible pain of hunger, its competitor leaves the hunting field. It's our loser's turn to try his luck again. The rays of the evening sun mark the end of this day for the inhabitants of wild Bulgaria. After a short break, everything starts anew. And the new day, full of challenges, will bring about new problems and difficulties. This is the day when the preparations for the fallow deer's gladiatorial battles begin. Nature ordains the winners with immortality. The prize for the victor is the opportunity to continue their lineage. For those that fall in battle, there will be no offspring, just exile and even death. The rules are simple. Make your opponent run away or bend your head before the stronger to survive. Actually, there are no rules during these battles for dominance. The only thing that matters is the defeat of your opponent. The prize is the immortality of your generation. Your right to leave heirs with your own DNA in the rows of future generations of fallow deer. So you risk paying with your life and ending up a meal for a carnivore. The birds, who are first to impatiently await the fatal end of a battle between the fallow deer, are the crows. These big black creatures are amongst the most intelligent of the bird world. The raven is the most common type of crow in Bulgaria. It was proven that some ravens can communicate with each other via sounds, gestures, and mimicking behavior. Around the world, there are over 40 raven species. The common raven is widespread throughout Bulgaria. These birds are famous for their intelligent approach towards problem solving. Also, thanks to their communication skills, they manage to share information with other birds in the flock. The most well-known example is their ability to recognize the faces of humans who have caused them harm. These people can then be recognized later and attacked by other birds in the flock. When gathered in a group, the ravens can oppose larger predators that compete with them for food. They are not afraid to harass wolves and even jackals. When one of their group dies, the birds will flock together. This is believed to be an intelligent act in order to establish the reason for death. In the case of a violent death, the whole flock attacks and chases the killer away. Another interesting aspect of the raven's everyday life is that they allow ants to crawl all over them. They then crush the insects onto their feathers. This way, the birds can clean and protect themselves against parasites with the assistance of the formic acid, which is released in the process. It's not just by chance that you see so many different carrion-eating bird species all in one place. Vultures as well as ravens know that after the fallow deer fights, there might be food left for them. The question isn't whether if some antler-armed gladiator might fall dead, the question is when. Today, however, is not the day when the lethal passion of a crazed fallow deer will leave their opponent taking its last breath in a duel. Hormones haven't completely taken over the deer's consciousness, but the lethal final battle is coming. They are all looking forward to it and are preparing for the day on which they will face each other to fight for their right to leave offspring. It might be today, or perhaps even tomorrow. From 100 years ago. Once upon a time, there was a fairy tale land. Wild animals used to live there, and everyone adhered to the rules of nature. And in return, they received food from its fertile soil, so that there was enough food for everyone. There were huge herds moving unhindered from one end of Eurasia to the other, and there was abundant food for the predators too. Life was blooming and flourishing, until one day a new, more superior predator appeared: the human. During this predator's world wars, the human exterminated almost all the large wild animals that inhabited the European continent. There was almost nothing left, even from the hundreds of thousands of European bison herds. Only a small herd was preserved in Poland, and it too was wiped out by the end of 1990. 30 years later, the military conflicts came to an end. People then realized how stupid and egotistic they had been to destroy so many animals to the point of wiping out almost a whole species from the planet, the European bison. Yet, there was a small speck of hope. The people gathered together what was left of this species in different zoos, 8 females and 3 males. This was the last living herd on Earth. They freed these last surviving bison into the Białowieża forest, which today is located between Poland and Belarus. These animals that were freed into the wild were once again the masters of their own destiny. In the summer of 1951, the bison still numbered only 12. Ever since, this once widespread European animal has been fighting for its survival on a daily basis. Today, small herds have settled again in new locations. At present, bison can be found in many countries of Eastern Europe, and this small herd has found its shelter here, in the wild regions of Bulgaria. Together with the fallow deer that are another species reintroduced in Bulgaria, the bison are the offspring of some of the most numerous fauna that have populated the Balkan Peninsula. Being the good neighbors they are, the bison herd stoically tolerates their close cohabitation with the fallow deer, who are agitated by a surge in hormones. It's the hardest time of year for the deer, the rutting season, and it's only just beginning. Hormones influence the male to project their dominance over each and every opponent in the herd. The battles between the stags are more and more merciless and sometimes lethal. Bison are also affected by the approaching rutting season. In its desire to show its power and strength, this giant that weighs nearly a ton takes down a whole tree without a problem. This male's Herculean feat makes the young bison tremble with admiration. Someday, the youngster will be able to do the same thing, as long as it manages to survive in wild Bulgaria. A deer's powerful roaring momentarily interrupts the bison's focus. their battle hasn't entered its most fervent phase yet, and there's nothing more interesting to watch. Yet this bison's fight with a 3-meter-high tree attracts the attention of a lovesick fallow deer. A breakfast for this sweetheart is served, just how she likes it. Fresh sprouts from the treetop combined with its fragrant roots. As the daily temperature rises, the heat of battle increases too. The males get hotter and hotter and undertake a life-or-death fight. As true gladiators, the fallow deer exchange one hit after another. Unlike the ancient fighters of the Colosseum, the deer have a choice and could give up and run away from the battle at any time. Yet, there is only one way out for those wounded and weak in battle. The circling wolves, jackals and bears would take care of them. What's left would be for the vultures and ravens. One of the jackals circling this arena wouldn't mind the taste of a young fawn, but the animals are alert and sense the approaching predator. During daylight, the deer have an advantage over them. They could easily outrun the jackals after spotting them in the distance. The young bison is also one of the predator's preferred dishes, but its parents are a nightmare for each and every attacker. Huge, powerful, and armed with horns and hooves, bison can fight off an attack from a whole pack. For wolves, jackals, and even bears, it's far safer and easier to wait until the final outcome of a duel between the deer. The preparation for every duel begins with some advanced stalking of the opponent. A throaty roar is the call to battle. When the time arrives, the hits are delivered with incredible power. And if by surprise a third fighter joins in the duel, the death of one horned gladiator is almost guaranteed. The strikes from the ambush prove lethal, and applause from the vultures enjoying the merciless fight spreads like a curse above the fighters fallen in the arena. Whoever wins the battle here is not always the strongest fighter, but sometimes the freshest, the one who was last to enter combat. Some leave the battlefield without their weapons, others with heavily bleeding wounds. The predator's spectators keep a close eye on them. The fighter's sharp front spikes that can cause lethal injuries are used along the enemy's flanks. This usually happens during a mass fight, where 3 or more deer randomly fight with each other and inflict hits everywhere. The predators are fast to find the wounded warriors and put a swift end to their suffering. Once they get a taste for the warm blood, they're addicted and try over and over again to take the life of another victim. Wolves' mass killings are horrific. A single wolf can kill a whole herd of sheep many times over without actually eating them. Killing intoxicates these grey predators, and they're the most dangerous mass killer in wild Bulgaria. But unlike the helpless sheep, deer have lethal antlers and solid hooves. Direct contact with these painful weapons is not one of the tactics favoured by this predator, and it's swift to withdraw from the battleground. It's being hotly pursued by the whole herd, and if it slows down for even a moment, will be on the receiving end of the deer's anger. The noon heat brings a halt to the gladiator fights for a short while, and the grave diggers dive into the arena. Initial processing of the corpses is done by the jackals and the wolves, and then it's the turn of the carrion-eating birds. Scraps scattered along the meadow are the only things left from the vultures' invasion. But the catch is sparse, and the raven family includes hundreds of relatives. This black mafia work together against a dangerous opponent. With a single strike, the small crying eagle could kill each of its attackers. Yet these fighters are well organized and numerous. The raven is one of the most intelligent birds in wild Bulgaria. Their main tactic is to physically harass their opponent. Maneuvering from a safe distance, they stalk it from behind while trying to tear off its tail feathers. Even if they don't succeed, pain and stress usually make their opponent fly off. This battle tactic works well with birds much bigger than themselves. The only strategic advantage that might make the ravens withdraw is greater numbers. Even in this case, their group council decides whether to leave the catch or fight for it. While the black-feathered leaders are discussing how to cope with both Egyptian vultures, a long procession is approaching the hill. The dark leaders signal for a full retreat, and the black-feathered clan withdraws from the hill. The territory is immediately conquered by the grey ravens that in turn will start harassing the Egyptian vultures. Grey ravens are distant relatives of the crows, and they use similar battle techniques. When they get together, this pair of vultures become dangerous opponents for the crows. Soon, though, the vultures will have to flee. This curious gigantic baby could stumble into them accidentally. The herd has climbed the hill so that the bison can eat from the remaining green leaves. This tiny guy still can't graze, but its mum carries the tastiest and most nutritious breakfast in the world: warm milk. While the big bison are feasting without a care, a partridge has detected with its sixth sense that something bad is about to happen. With a sharp croaking, the bird tries to warn everyone of the approaching danger. Thunder and lightning are among the few things that really scare the bison. Overexcited by the approaching storm, the males start fighting between themselves. The young one, spooked by so many imminent threats, tries to run away from the fighting and the thunder. The pouring rain helps to calm the passions. But where is the boy? His mother is trying to calm him down. A little rain doesn't scare the bison, but the drops are getting bigger and bigger, and soon it turns into a deluge. The thunder approaches, closer and closer. It's time for the herd to leave the ridge. The animals are scared and unnerved by the force of nature. The herd is trying to get back to its familiar and cozy beech forest at the foot of the hill, yet their route is severed. The river that used to be a small brook has turned into a muddy and stormy floodwater. With every passing second, the pouring rain adds its power to the rushing rapids. The muddy waters carry roots and stones. They uproot the trees, and everything standing in their way is in danger. The bison have to find shelter from the menace of the river rapids. They make it to a sparse area of forest. The oldest bison, the herd leader, has brought them here. Yet its competitor doesn't agree with his decision. Conflict is on the cards. The old man was not expecting this level of aggression and is wounded by the sharp horn of his assailant. His lungs are injured, and the old bison has difficulties breathing. The wounded leader can feel his strength draining and heads towards the water. The whole herd follows him. The animals can sense that their leader can't go on anymore. The strength of the old bison melts away, and he falls clumsily in the mud. The last thing he feels is the moist air soaked into the smell of thousands of herbs and plants. The herd gathers around the fallen warrior in order to see him off and say farewell to their former leader. They have a new one already. The death of the old bison is an integral part of the circle of life, and they calmly accept this. The rain will stop soon, and after the storm, it's time to feast. The storks love this time, when moisture-loving creatures come to life. With its long beak and stilt-like legs, the stork is a formidable hunter. The salamander must be quick to hide if it doesn't want to turn into dinner for the big birds. Good camouflage will save its life once again. The bison have lost their long-time leader, and tonight, the animals of the herd feel insecure. The wolves and bears can smell the corpse from kilometers away and quickly discover the dead bison. The huge animal is sufficient to feed all the predators, yet the bear doesn't want to share any with the wolves. The grey wolves are crazy with hunger and don't back away from the angry bear until one of them falls its spine crushed from the bear's powerful claws. Sunrise signals the renewal of the deer's gladiatorial fights. There are bread and circuses for the spectators. Battles have been going on for over a week, and it's time for the winners to take their prizes. Mistakes sometimes happen. While the established fighters are battling life and death with another contender, the young newcomers are improving their skills by sparring amongst themselves. The youngsters are observing the battles from the sidelines and try to master the adults' battle style. This new start has taken a head injury and is being provided with first aid. The young warrior no longer wants to try his luck in the arena. His battling spirit has diminished with the first pain from his wound. Now, he's just an observer of the final duels. An embarrassing escape has saved this failed fighter, although he got a severe stab wound in the last clash. Vultures are experienced pathologists and can accurately diagnose a wound just by watching how a patient walks. This time, their professional interest is directed towards a wounded fallow deer. Hunger gathers the flock above their prospective lunch. Suddenly, as if following an invisible signal, the battles come to an end, and now the most important part of the mating process begins: conceiving for the next generation. Only the most resilient males have made it to the final stages, and they will have the honor of conquering the harem. The end of the deer's rutting season overlaps with the end of autumn. Birds prepare for the long flight to Africa before the winter arrives. Many migratory birds nest and procreate in Bulgaria after leaving Africa at the start of the season. They've flown here along the Via Pontica. This is one of the two largest routes for the migratory birds that come from Africa. These cormorants are eating voraciously during the weeks leading up to their journey south. Their tactic of group fishing is so successful that once they've gone, there are almost no fish left in the water dam. After each successful visit, the birds gather once again in a flock for another strike on the fish schools. The mouflons were introduced into wild Bulgaria, but they still haven't learned that if cormorants are feeding actively, it's time for the curved-horned ones to prepare for winter. The change in seasons happen almost unnoticeably. Yet a white winter surprises all the wild inhabitants, regardless of how well they're prepared. After the first appearance of the cold northern wind, the animals start looking for shelter among the trees of the forest. Soon, the falling snowflakes start changing the appearance of the landscape. Birds are circling around and searching for the last few grains on the ground before the snow hides them for several months. With every passing hour, the snow envelops the open-air meadows and accumulates in fluffy piles and onto the branches of the trees. The snow crystals create weird and wonderful shapes carved by the winds. The wildlife finds it hard to move around freely in the piles of white cover. Wolves are the only ones playing joyfully in the snow. During winter, they rule the forest. Life or death depends on them. These are the laws of nature that have been written for millions of years. These laws give predators the right to survive through the weak and the ill in order to preserve the species. The same laws dictate the seasonal changes and the difficult cold winter months, followed by spring, which dictates the rules of life for Bulgarian wildlife. Many weeks will pass until its arrival, during which the winter will test the strength and will for survival of the forest inhabitants, so that this fairy tale without an end can continue in wild Bulgaria.